What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns and gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Today's going to be about not being a gun snob. Anyway, if this is not your first rodeo here at Gunfighter Life, I'd appreciate it if you scroll down, hit some stars, left a review if your platform lets you do that. That'd be great. Make sure you're subscribed to get fresh content. You never know what's going to come next, because I sure don't. So make sure you're subscribed. Gonna plug in the bio if you've heard it before or don't care. You can skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds, and hopefully we'll have a good podcast on guns. Who am I? A question we should all ask ourselves. I am, first and foremost, a servant of God, made in His very own image, a follower of Jesus Christ, a simple man called by God to the Great Commission to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Next, a little bit about my background and what God has allowed me to do and blessed me to do in life. Grew up what most would consider very poor in the backwoods of the southeastern and mid-Atlantic United States, hunting and fishing. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. So a decorated Marine Corps combat veteran. Infantry assaultman. After the combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also a veteran of law enforcement. I served with LAPD. I was a sworn peace officer, a cop for LAPD. I worked regular patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. One of those more specialized assignments was warrant service, fugitive recovery. Also had some other law enforcement roles. I am an FBI certified firearms instructor and been certified by another 3-letter government agency in a lot of firearms and training things. I've also been a private contractor, worked in the private sector, pertaining to tactics and gunfighting and protecting America from enemies foreign and domestic. I served as the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters in a large metropolitan area. That was our primary mission, to stop active shooters, which sadly are a thing in America today. I've also been blessed to do quite a bit of competition shooting. Started my first formal competitions even before joining the Marine Corps at 17. I had won more shooting competitions than I can remember. I have competed in all manner of disciplines in shooting. I've been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion, West Coast regional champion. Like I said, been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. Mentioned hunting. I've hunted to put meat on the table starting when I was a child. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide, hunting and slaying all manner of beast. And I don't apologize for that. Humbled to be the host of 3 podcasts. Simple Man Sermons, Alpha Male Podcast, and Gunfighter Life. Obviously, as things not mentioned, I've been blessed to do many other things. But, again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, a believer and follower of the Bible, the Word, Jesus Christ. And I don't apologize for that. With that, let's transition into today's topic. there's a gun company that kind of sparked this thought for this episode, and it came out of our Patreon chat. If you don't know, there's an insider Patreon chat. If you don't want to miss out on that, you might want to consider becoming a patron. We talk about stuff like this all the time. Anyway, we're talking about Kel-Tec. Kel-Tec makes some really cool guns, and they make some really good guns, and are not afraid to take chances on guns. Now, I think there may be a certain segment of the population that thinks, population in the gun community, I think there's no place for a Kel-Tec, and they're not the only ones, or a Charter Arms, or a Sccy, SCCY. These are all good American-made gun manufacturers. There are some that might think that if it's not a Daniel Defense, then it's garbage. And I'll be the first to admit, let's be honest, I'm also not the guy that says that a Kel-Tec SU-16, which is kind of their AR-ish design rifle, I'm the first to say that that is not a Daniel Defense Mark 18. I don't think they're equal. I probably wouldn't take a Kel-Tec SU-16 to one of my old training courses with, over 2,000 rounds in a week over and over again and expect it to hold up. But that's okay. Not everything has to be a Daniel Defense. I grew up very poor. Looking back at it now, I didn't know it at the time, but fairly poor. I mean, like no telephone, sometimes huddling in one room around a kerosene heater. Kind of poor in the South. If somebody is in whatever financial situation, they're a young college student in a crazy amount of debt. We won't get into whether that's a good situation or not. Or a single mother, or who knows what. Somebody that's just getting into preparedness. Or somebody that just wants an extra gun to put in their trunk, or their wife's trunk. It's not going to be their go-to fighting rifle. There's all kinds of situations where just that one gun that got me thinking about this, that Kel-Tec SU-16, that will be a nice, light, handy backpack hunting for coyotes and things like that, survival rifle, a truck gun defensive rifle, a ranch rifle. Does it have a cold hammer forged chrome line barrel? No. Is that better? Yes. Is that really relevant and pertinent to everybody? No. So don't be a gun snob. Likewise, that single mother that wants something to protect herself. She has the money for a Sccy, which I think are good, dependable guns. Maybe not even that. Maybe all she has is the money for a High Point. You going to tell her that's gun's not worth having? There's no place for that because she should just be defenseless until she can afford a Glock 19 with a Surefire X1 million lumen light and a Safariland holster? No, right? She's far better off with that Sccy or with that even High Point 380 than she is defenseless because, it's not a Glock, so it's not worth having. Likewise, that young boy that didn't have anybody to take him hunting or hand him down a gun, and he really wants to get into hunting. And what he has after working that minimum wage job is enough money to get a Maverick 88 shotgun for I don't know what they are with inflation now. Let's say probably $200. That running a special at Big 5, $200 for that pump action semi-auto shotgun. And that's what he can afford after buying his hunting license and his ammo. Go out and try bird hunting because he's never hunted before. You're going to say, no, don't even bother. If it's not a Beretta White Wing, why even bother putting it to your shoulder? No, right? There's a place for all these guns in all these situations. Now, I will say there is a place to save and get the best you can. Once you have that base model handgun, once you have that, let's say Kel-Tec P380, P3AT, and that's the gun you can afford, and you carry with it, and you get your permit if your state requires one, and you go out and practice and train, and you have a decent quantity of ammo. Instead of going out and buying 5 more Kel-Tec handguns, maybe save up a little bit of money and buy that M&P, that next level up handgun. Once you get that base model AR, that, Delton, if they're even around, they used to be kind of the go-to budget model AR, and they were decent, especially for the money. Once you have that Delton and you run it and you take it to training classes and you go to an Appleseed shoot or whatever, and you become good with it and you get to the point where you're kind of out shooting that gun, then instead of buying 5 more Deltons or a Delton and then a Black Rain Ordnance or something, maybe there is a place to save up and get that Daniel Defense Mark 18. An example, if you listen to the bio, I was the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters. For like 10 years, I wanted a Scar 17. And it was always kind of a gun that I wanted, but I couldn't justify buying. But when I was the commander of a tactical team and I got to make the policy and I let the guys carry what they wanted to carry so long as they could qualify with it, and my life and their lives and the lives of innocent men, women, and children might depend on the gun that I was carrying, I think that was the time to step up and buy that Scar 17, which I did, even though I had to sell off several of the guns that I had to put it towards the purchase of that gun. And I think that was the right choice. There is a time to go top notch and not to cut corners. I also want to point out something else on this. I'm just throwing round numbers out there. These are not real world prices. I didn't look this up. But let's say a Smith & Wesson M&P, which is a good standard AR-15, costs $800. Actually, let's say it costs $750. These might be pre-inflation prices. I have not bought a gun in quite a while. I am not a gun collector. I call this gunfighter life, not gun collector life. But let's say that an M&P, Smith & Wesson M&P 15 costs $750. And let's say that Daniel Defense costs $1,500, literally twice as much to the penny. This is not anything to do with these two manufacturers. I'm saying this, I've noticed this kind of, let's say, growth chart style curve, no matter the manufacturer. If you spend twice as much money, you're not getting twice the gun. Usually, there are exceptions, but in general, that Daniel Defense, it's not going to be twice as good as that Smith & Wesson M&P. It might be 30% better, but it's going to cost you twice as much. And the further you go up that economic ladder, the less value you're going to get. You're still going to get better guns, but less value. That Smith & Wesson M&P is, in my experience, usually going to be very reliable, very robust, hold up very well, be plenty accurate. If you spend twice as much on the Daniel Defense, it's going to be a better gun. I'm going to say that. But you're not going to get twice as much accuracy. You're not going to get twice as much dependability. What you're going to get is maybe a cold hammer forged barrel, which may be important to you. Maybe a better coating on the bolt carrier group, which can greatly reduce malfunction sometimes. You may get a little bit nicer furniture with a little bit better ergonomics. Again, not twice the gun for twice the money, but a better gun for twice the money. I've noticed that curve in a lot of things. I can, because I've run plenty of training classes, I can shoot my STIs, which now are staccato, quite a bit better than a Glock 19. It's a better gun than a Glock 19. You also might be able to buy 6 Glock 19s for what an STI costs. It's not 6 times the gun. It's maybe 50% faster and maybe 50% more accurate, but it's 6 times the price, and I'm just throwing that number out there. It's, 6 times the price of a Glock. A Glock might be, what are they now, $700? In an STI last I looked for, their high-end one was $4,000, a little over $4,000. Right? So you get what I'm talking about with that bell curve. The higher you get up that bell curve, you will get better and better guns. You get to a point where you're getting your most value, and that's generally in your mid-tier guns, your Glock 19. It's not my favorite gun, but it's a good value gun for what you're spending. You're going to have to spend a lot more to get a little bit better. And that's what I'm talking about. That Smith & Wesson M&P 15 is a good AR-15. You're going to have to spend a lot more to get a little bit better. Is a Colt Python a better revolver than a Charter Arms? I'm going to say yes, it is. But you're going to have to spend a lot more, several times as much, to get that Colt Python as you are for that Charter Arms. So keep that in mind and just be realistic. Let's use the example of deer hunting. You can go the semi-custom route and get like a Cooper Arms, which are fantastic rifles. You can get a semi-custom bolt-action rifle and spend sky's the limit. Let's say $3,000 on a rifle and an optic, which is easy to do. There are very few situations where a guy with a Savage Axis with a factory-mounted 3-9 scope, most places east of the Mississippi, can't kill every deer that you're probably ever going to see with that 30-06, couple of $100 Savage Axis that you can with your rifle. Do you have a better rifle? Yes. But does that mean that he's a handicap? Almost any situation, 99.9% of the time that you're going to find yourself of east of the Mississippi with that Savage Axis? No, he's going to be fine. And that's a good example. Let's look at that logically. If his goal is to, for the next 10 years, go out and supplement his family's good, healthy, reliable meat source, does it make sense for him to spend $3,000 on a rifle? He could probably buy filet mignon for that, right? If he's going out to get a deer rifle to put meat on the table repeatedly to feed his family, that kind of defeats the purpose to spend thousands of dollars on a deer rifle when he can put just as much meat in the freezer with that Savage Axis or whatever the other similar one is. That I'm a fan of the Axis. I've owned several. They're crazy accurate and reliable. But you get my point, right? For him, that's the right choice. It doesn't make sense for him to go out and get a semi-custom rifle if his goal is to put meat on the table. If his goal is to look cool on Instagram, which a lot of gun culture seems to be in nowadays, that's different. But if his goal is to put meat in the freezer for his family to eat, which is how I grew up hunting, then that's the right choice. And let me say another thing. The guy with the Kel-Tec P380, which if you don't know is kind of a bottom tier, but still kind of a classic carry gun. The guy with that P380 that goes home and dry fires it and does 100 push-ups and does that consistently throughout the week and then has that gun in a decent holster and is carrying it, that's the guy I'd rather have by my side than the guy that has the Wilson Combat super grade with mammoth ivory handles, who's next to me that left his gun home in the safe because it was too pretty and too precious, or he just doesn't feel like carrying it. Right? The guy with the Kel-Tec P380 that dry fires with it, that's the guy that I want next to me, not the guy with the fancy Wilson Combat super grade mammoth ivory 1911. Is that a better gun? Yeah, it's a better gun, but if you don't have it on you, it's not. If it's not in your immediate dominion and control, it's not going to do you much good in a gunfight. These are not the days when you would slap somebody in the face with a glove to challenge them to a duel and meet them a week later. Right? Gunfights in the real world are almost always fast and dirty and right now. Anyway, keep that all in perspective. These are just my thoughts and opinions. Yours may differ. That's fine. I don't want you to be a robot. If you agree with me all the time, then you are wrong. Because I am wrong sometimes. Only our Heavenly Father and His one and only Son, Jesus Christ, are perfect, and I am certainly not. So you shouldn't agree with me all the time, and it's okay to disagree with me on this. This is just some of my thoughts. I'm not so vain as to think that you should agree with me all the time. Anyway, with that, tactical tip of the day. In fact, I'm going to give you a few, and these are ways to save money that are quite effective. Next time you find yourself in Dollar Tree or Walmart Go to wherever it is that you don't normally go, that area where they sell the girly stuff, where the nail polish is. And look for the most obnoxiously bright colored nail polish that stands out the most to you. Some people tend to think their eyes pick up green better, or red better, or orange better. Whatever that is to you, whatever color you think looks the most obnoxious and stands out the most. You might want to buy that color in addition to white. A lot of American handguns come with a standard 3-dot sight. I don't like those. I especially don't like those for shooting really fast. You may try just taking a Sharpie and blacking out the rear sight so the entire thing is black, and then taking that obnoxious nail polish, first hitting that front sight with white. That'll make the obnoxiousness of that color stand out even more. Let it dry, then hit it with that obnoxious chartreuse or zombie green or whatever color you want to get. A good, easy way to get a more effective sight than most handguns come with. If you want to spend more money, you can go with like the Ameriglow route. They're kind of that way from the get-go. I'm not a big fan of the XS sights on handguns. If you already have a night sight and you want to keep that night sight on the front, then a tactical tip inside a tactical tip, take a toothpick and some tactical peanut butter. Not crunchy for this, although crunchy is good peanut butter. And you take it with that tip of that toothpick and put it inside that cavity where that tritium fiber optic night sight vial is. Just inside that little indentation. Then you can paint over it. Then you can come back later with a fresh toothpick and scrape that out. You should have that bright sight with the tritium night sight still visible at night. As you may surmise, I've painted sights a time or two. Another way, and this used to be big back when I was competition shooting a lot hot and heavy way back in the early aughts, because we didn't have all these highly customizable things, all these different choices in handguns and grips. It's a good, inexpensive way to improve the grip on a handgun, and that is skateboard grip tape. You can get it in black, you can get it in all kinds of obnoxious colors if you want obnoxious colors. But if you find yourself having an issue holding on to something or hitting some kind of control consistently, you may want to try applying some skateboard grip tape. If you treat your guns like tools and that is not adhesive enough, don't be afraid to take a file or something and rough up that polymer frame and put some super glue on that and the grip tape. Don't worry, it's nothing a Dremel can't remove later. Anyway, those are some good, cheap tactical tips that you may want to utilize. Another one, if it's a long gun and you want to improve maybe the ergos, just soften up that old school quad rail that came on a lot of ARs. You don't want to spend a lot of money. They do make that athletic tape that sticks to itself for like wrapping and injury. That stuff can be fairly expensive, even so it's not expensive as far as a gun mod goes. If you go to like Tractor Supply or DMB or any kind of rodeo thing, they have the same kind of athletic tape for horses. And it comes in really big rolls, and it's a few dollars instead of quite a bit more money if you get it at a more expensive store. And as far as I can tell, it's the same kind of tape. Anyway, there's some tactical tips of the day for you. And far more important than that is the tactical verse of the day. Coming at you from Deuteronomy 19. One witness shall not rise against a man concerning any iniquity or any sin that he commits. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses the matter shall be established. If a false witness arises against any man to testify against him of wrongdoing, then both men in the controversy shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and the judges who serve in those days. And the judges shall make careful inquiry. And indeed, if the witness is a false witness who has testified falsely against his brother, then you shall do to him as he thought to have done to his brother. So you shall put away evil from among you. And those who remain shall hear and fear. And thereafter they shall not again commit such evil among you. Think about that. Think about what a different society we would have if we followed those rules of God. Anyway, with that, thanks for listening, gunfighters. Have a blessed day.